Welcome to Living Chassidus. Together, let's live the Chassidus we learn.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Chassidus in the Morning, Kuntres HaTefila. Tracking away, Parak Zayin Ches and Tes, and then we've completed it. It's beautiful, right around the time of Yotes Kislev. It's very auspicious. So let's get into it. So basically, we were discussing yesterday. Well, we discussed two things. And then the Parak Vav, we discussed a very important point. This is a general point, not just for this, but for everything, is that we have to realize that it is possible. And we can't, the Yetzer Hara doesn't want us to do this, because the Yetzer Hara sees that if we do these things, we do try to learn Chassidus in a real way and connect it with Das, and we try to daven, and we care about davening and learn Torah mitzvahs, so he's going to make his job infinitely more difficult. So we discussed that Rebbe Rashab says, you have a heart and you have a mind, you can do it. Then we talked about in the beginning of chapter 7, which is basically what chapter 7 is talking about, is that people, that they solely focus on learning deep concepts, and they don't want to learn the simpler, so to speak, or more down-to-earth type of concepts, and they think it's just like amateurish stuff. And he's negating it, because not that he's negating learning the deep concepts per se, just he's negating the fact that if you just learn it, that's it. And meaning it shows where you're holding your whole level, your whole understanding of Chassidus is a little bit shaped, it's wrong, it's warped. And that's why you're focusing only on those high esoteric things, where you don't want to focus on the simpler things. It doesn't make any sense why a person would do that. And it must be that that they understand Chassidus is wrong. So on page 72, near the middle, near the end, middle-endish, yeah. Imaginary comprehension. Some individuals labor in vain, not having achieved even an iota of genuine understanding of these topics. And even more of the issue is a person doesn't really understand these topics. They merely imagine that a concept has been grasped, but don't truly comprehend it at all. So they think they understand it. It's like Rebbe Binyamin Walters was saying, how we've come to suffice ourselves with just saying those words and knowing that it's a higher level and a higher level, but we don't really understand what those levels mean. So if a person's learning all these levels above Seidish Tarshalos, which are esoteric, deep concepts, and he's just saying, oh, this level is, oh, that one's higher, or Kesser is higher than Chachma of Atzilus, So he says that he doesn't understand that. For these concepts do not lend themselves to comprehension by the intellective garments, owing to their abstract and spiritual nature. They really transcend comprehension altogether, and they're really very deep, lofty ideas that in truth that there's a certain limit, there's a limitation to what we can understand from them, because they're talking about these levels are way above our understanding, the way our mind works. Their primary understanding depends on the inner bina, and from the subsistion of the soul termed ovna de libna. And so that's where the ability comes from to understand whatever they understand. It's really from bina, ovna de bina, like it says. It's an Aramaic term for havanas halev, meaning understanding the heart. That's basically dependent on understanding, meaning the feeling that we produce, when we talked about before, is through coming, and needs to come through the level of bina. Whereas if it's an idea that you can't really understand, the bina is when you truly understand something with all its length and breadth, you really grasp the idea. But if you can't grasp the idea, then you can't have that emotional effect. Inevitably, these individuals distort and confuse the subject matter. So therefore, when they're learning it, they totally confuse the whole idea, because they can't really understand it. This happens to those possessing strong intellects as well. And it's not just because they have weak minds, they don't have a good head. They can still have a good head and still make this mistake. Why? Because people who possess the native ability to truly understand a concept, top of 74, but all the same get it backwards, aspiring to become self-made intellectuals and to originate novel interpretations of their own. Such individuals are neither devoted nor dedicated to the teaching of their holy forebears, the Rebbes of blessed memory. So these people are learning it in a way that they're trying to make chidushim and trying to show trying to bring out different points, that it's not like, so to speak, They don't stick to the text. Instead of trying to understand what the text is actually saying, and we're talking about deep concepts that you should really put in effort to understand, but they're learning it in a way that they can try to figure out different chidushim, meaning they have good heads, but they're using it in the wrong way. This would be done by concentrating deeply on their teachings in order to understand the meaning. Instead, as soon as they encounter an idea, they immediately jump to apply the intellectual inventiveness and creative thinking, and to originate novel interpretations. So they jump to make up all these chidushim, like and they try to figure out all these different ways, but you're missing the point. You're missing the point of the learning. You're missing the point of how to understand. Consequently, they are left with nothing but their strange and unauthentic insights. The truth of the matter entirely eludes them, and what the Imam is actually saying is totally lost from them. On the contrary, they turn the true meaning completely upside down, interpreting the inner Torah in a manner contradictory to its true intent. Heaven forbid, may God forgive them. So they're learning it totally opposite the way they should, and it's making total mistakes. Meaning when we learn, we're not learning, and this is maybe not necessarily such an issue that I guess that a lot of us have per se, but again, a lot of time we learn these concepts that you say you could either learn and say, hey, there's nothing to do with me, or this is giving me a better understanding of what he's trying to teach us, what he's trying to show us. And through seeing what he negates, it helps us understand how we're meant to be learning. So we're meant to be learning, we're meant to first read it, understand it to the best of our abilities, and try to make sure I understand what is the Rebbe trying to say here. What are we saying? And not try to say, this sounds like what it says somewhere else. It must be that it connects and this, and try to bring this whole connection. You don't need to do that. You just need to come, sit down, read it, translate it, and try to understand what it's saying. And spend the time, once, 2, 3 times, and really say, I like really grasp the idea. And what are we trying to say here? What is Rebbe trying to teach us here? And that's what we're meant to be doing. Yeah. True comprehension. We must devote and dedicate ourselves with all our souls and minds to the true teaching that our venerable forebears, the Rebbes of blessed memory, have bequeathed to us. We must toil profusely to understand their holy words, and merely to become vessels to receive and grasp the truth of their words. We only have to try to learn their words and try to make ourselves open to receiving what they're trying to say. Not trying to put in our things, but try to receive from them. Whereas we're talking about the person before, even that he has a good mind, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to put in their own chidushim into it. Where he's saying, your job is not to put in chidushim, your job is to sit there and try to understand and make yourself a keli, open yourself up to say, am I truly understanding this? Is there more that I'm missing? What can I be getting? And read the words again and try to see it that way. Through abundant study in a diversity of subjects, and through much exertion, we can then afterwards conceive true insights from their words. May God illuminate our eyes. And he's saying, but in the end, if you put in the effort to understand it well, understand what you're learning, take all this that you're learning and understand them well, and you'll learn a few different types of subjects, so it will come. But it'll be a natural progression. It won't be forced. It won't be, like a forced type of thing. It'll come just natural by itself. But the fact that you learned enough subjects, you say, that's so interesting. 1 second, that's so interesting because I read over there, it says something different. Let me check that up again. And you're looking, this is interesting. And then you think about it, like, maybe, how could I understand this? And that's true. That's the true chiddush, the true novel insight that we can do. But again, you're not doing that. That's not what your focus is. Your focus is to understand. Through understanding enough concepts, it will come by itself. And also don't materialize the concept. Bottom 74. Among these group of people are those who compound the ham by reducing the concept to very materialistic terms. This occurs once they invest the concept into the coarseness of comprehension and materialistic garments. So then there's sort of the opposite extreme. The extreme in the beginning is that they're thinking too much of Kabbalistic ideas, but the problem here is that they're taking the ideas and they're pulling it and making it very, very physical, very materialistic. He's not saying that they're doing it in order to understand it in their lives and internalize it, but they're trying to just bring it down and sort of remove it from all the spirituality that exists. And that also can be a negative issue. Let's see. Top of 76. This comes about due to the coarseness of their intellective faculties. For some people, as known, possess refined intellects, while others possess crude ones. May he who is compassionate atone. So some people, they're just very coarse minds by nature, and so they can't understand things, meaning they try to remove all the words of it. To be honest, I'm not sure exactly what this issue is, because but it seems like you're saying it's very materialistic. That it sounds like, it's like talking about it in very grub terms. Let's see. And that's sort of what he's saying. And they talk about it in very, very non, like, using examples that are like not sneers, let's say, or something like this. We're not doing it in a proper way. Summary. So we laments over the Rebbe Rashab laments over those who engage in Torah study only abstruse subjects. This is due to their failure to earnestly plumb the depth of our Rebbe's words, and the reason, and it's a mistake, because they don't really go into the depth of understanding what's actually being said in any of the Maimarim. Just trying to find deep ideas. Some people, furthermore, turn these teachings upside down, casting them into the materialistic context because of their cost and comprehension. But we're not saying, don't get confused. He's not saying that you're not allowed to make it understandable in your mind, in your own materialism, your own world. He's just saying they've gone to too extreme of it. That they're not connected. That in the end, it's nothing. It doesn't come back to saying, "Oh, this is about godliness and about God and about my relationship with God and about working on myself." Yeah, what's the time? I have a little bit more time. Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. Chapter 8. We have 2 more chapters to go. 8 and 9. 8 is all about working on ourselves. And this is sort of, I feel like we're tying up all the little things. So again, the purpose of this sefer, the purpose of this Kuntres, is to appreciate the value of davening. This is what we need to take home, the take-home message. Appreciate the value of davening. Appreciate what does it mean, das, in learning in general, in learning Chassidus specifically, how we should connect what we're learning. We should learn it, understand it well, and then try to relate to it and see how this fits into my world. How am I meant to live according to the teaching of this Maimon? And the third thing is, so let's actually apply it to ourselves and actually work on ourselves and change ourselves. And this is what we're going to talk about in chapter 8. Refining the animal soul. In Chabad philosophy, the basis of prayer is to refine man's human animalistic habits and improve one's character. This can be attained when one's man of meditation is like that of Das, explained in Bab chapter 5. So remember, the purpose of Chassidus is to work on ourselves, to make ourselves the best ourselves we can be. And in order to do that, we have a nefesh of Bahamis, an animalistic soul that's in the way, that he or she is trying to convince us to do things that aren't important, essentially, to our goal while we're here. And our job is to convince it and to work on it and work on our Yetzer Hara to make sure it goes in line with what we want to do and what we want to achieve in our lives. And the key to be able to do that is by learning the Maimah properly, or the Sikha properly, understanding it and connecting to it on an emotional level. Many engage in the study of Chassidus, and yet many study Chassidus as they ought to and possess good intellectual aptitude, yet they minimize their involvement in prayer. Out of laziness, they neglect to exert themselves during their worship. So basically, understand that the Rebbe Rashab, for him, the time to work on ourselves and to think about what I need to be working on is during davening. And you're meant to spend the time daven, and you think about it, and you think what you need to work on, you think about how it works in terms of the Maimah and things like this. Not necessarily we have the time to daven, but the idea is we have to think about what is Maimah saying, how does it relate to me, and how can I relate this to what I live in my life, and how does this fit in, and how can I work according to these teachings of the Maimon to change the way I see the world, or the way I work on the way I see my issue, and how do I work on it. Generally, these individuals pray in a accustomed manner, like the average person. Occasionally, they do meditate during their prayers when their hearts are stirred, but only in a general and abbreviated way that doesn't count as a Veda at all, as discussed above. And as a result, all the efforts in the study of Chassidus is utterly futile, God forbid. So he's saying the problem is they learn Chassidus well, but they don't spend the time afterwards to think about the Chassidus. And meaning there's one level you need to learn. We'll stop here. One level you need to learn the concept, understand what the concept is actually saying. And the second step is to analyze in terms of our lives. And what is this telling me in terms of my life and my situation and what I'm meant to be doing? How am I meant to be living according to this Maimah? What am I meant to change? And what's something, and you can figure it out, you try to figure it out. And let's say the Maimah is talking about working on your Nefesh Bahamis. So you say, when is my Nefesh Bahamis talking? So, you learn the Maimers, but you have to say, okay, so the Maimer talking about working on Nefesh Bahamis, the like Parak test of Tanya, talking about a battle between the Nefesh Bahamis and Nefesh Lakis. There's a battle going within me. So I got to sit down and say, I don't have to sit down. We have to spend some time, whether it's while you're going to work or whether you're sitting down or wherever it is you can find, and say, hey, let me find out when my Nefesh Bahamis is talking, when my Nefesh Lakis is talking. And think about your day. Or as that happens, you could say, hey, who's talking now? Suddenly you're like, oh, I want to go get some ice cream. Or I want to go watch a movie now. So you have to ask them, hey, who's talking now? And how do I know? Is this my Nefesh Lakis or Nefesh Bahamis? So I have to figure it out. And that's what he's talking about. We have to spend that time to not just, learn a Maimon. Oh, the Maimon is saying, like it says in Parak Tanya, in chapter 10, chapter 9, that there's a battle going on within me, and the Eitz Sahara, the Nefesh Bahamis is trying to rule, and the Nefesh Lakis is trying to rule, and that's what's going on. And just close the sefer. But you got to sit there and say, okay, so when is that? Let me see this. Let me analyze myself and my life, and when is one talking, when's the other one talking? And when you do that, everything will change. And that's what he's saying. So they might learn the subjects and learn a lot of Chassidus, but they don't spend that extra important time to connect with it and to understand and to actually apply it into their lives.